everyone to today's Daily Tune-In. I'm Vidette Mayer, and this is the tune-in for Thursday, October 28th. So today tends to be a little bit quieter, a little bit gentler of an energy day, and yet we had another solar flare that just erupted a couple hours ago. I just got the notification on my phone. So we will be seeing, again, an intensity of energies that we'll probably be able to see on the Schumann. But for now, I want to go over to the Schumann right now and just kind of show you where we are. And then we're going to really jump into the densities, and we're going to break those down a little bit more because I talk about that word a lot. And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page when we talk about what the densities are, where they come from, and how we work through them. So let's first jump over to the Schumann and see what's going on over there. Okay, let's take a look at the Schumann today. And as you can see right now, it is relatively quiet. We came off of yesterday and we had a good, 12, 18 hours of some pretty good work that we had, help that we've gotten from these energies that are coming into our planet. Now, I want to just make sure that you realize that these energies are, whether they're on the Schumann or not, they are now affixed in our reality. So they are going to be coming in relatively strongly, whether we see them on the different tools that we look at or not. However, during these times when it's a little bit quieter, this is again when we integrate all of the work that we've done. Integration means this is the time where we sit and look at everything that was triggered from all of this energy. So we have a little bit of energy still coming in, these healing green. The green is typically the healing energies that are coming in. We do have some red splots is what I'll call them here, that again is still those densities working out. And I really wanted to get into what exactly are we talking about when we talk about these densities. So let's cover that in the message. So now that we covered that, I really want to jump into more of these densities that are being worked out in the lower frequencies of our beingness that are being worked out. And I'm really going to concentrate on the emotional densities because those are the pieces that seem a little convoluted for a lot of humans. They are the thing that we have been more taught to avoid in our collective because emotions don't matter. If you speak from your emotions, if you are an emotional being, that tends to be shamed a little bit. Oh, you're so sensitive. I've been told that my entire life. Oh, Vidette, you're just too sensitive. And yet, that is one of the largest pieces of intelligence that we hold in our multidimensional being. And yet, it's been the part of us that has been shamed for so long. So we've been taught then collectively to, don't cry, don't express yourself. If you do express yourself, you're emotional or you're sensitive or you're crazy. And we have been really taught to turn to the intellectual piece, and we can intellectualize almost anything. So if you have a discerning feeling towards something, or you ever have in your life, and you come from that feeling, most times in our collective, we will be told some intellectual, factual thing that diminishes the feeling. And yet, what makes a whole intellectual being, multidimensional being, is answering the call of not only the intellectual side of us, but also the 4D emotional side of us. That's where our intuitive feeling, that's the portal between the spiritual self, the 5D self, which is where all of this knowledge comes from, this universal knowledge. And that's the part of us that is discerning for us what intellectual information is for our best good and which is not. And it comes through the feeling portal, our 4D self, for us to then say, this doesn't quite feel right. And then in what we typically do is then take it into the physical and say, this doesn't feel right. Like what you just said, you said the words intellectually, and yet it didn't feel congruent with the words. And when we call people out on that, or we actually speak our truth, then they say, well, all I said was this, so you're just crazy. And yet what we are doing here, what we are learning to do with these higher energies is bringing ourselves up into that emotional, intellectual, the light quotient, the emotional quotient of who we are, the emotional intelligence of who we are. We are increasing that so it matches the intellectual information, the intellectual intelligence of us, and now we have a whole intelligence that's helping us to walk through this time in our history, and we can actually do that with critical thinking and creativity, which is all part of the emotional intellectual piece, because it's not something that's learned, it's inherent in us, it's inherent in every single human being. And yet we haven't been taught about it, we haven't been taught how to nurture it. Therefore, it has been diminished. So all we have really been taught to go on is intellectual intelligence. So we're only working with half of our intelligence. So as we start to move through we are in it. We are in the process of breaking down these densities that are emotional densities that then trigger physical densities and physical pain in our bodies. But we're going to talk about the emotional part of it, because the emotional part and all of those densities are so dense in so many people. And for those of us who've been doing this work, we're like, man, how much more of these densities, how much more of this pain or grief, anger is within me that I have to keep working through. Just when I think that I get these, these higher energies and I work through a layer, then they show up again. But what we have to understand, we have lifetimes of buried emotions, these filters that have been created through all the times we've been diminished for having those feelings. And all those times that we've been diminished, we've just then learned to just ignore them, so we bury them. And these energies don't just leave when we bury them. When we ignore feeling shame, when we ignore or we're afraid to feel grief, when we're afraid to express our fears, when we're afraid or we're just living in overwhelm and we wear overwhelm now as a badge of honor, like, oh, it's just so overwhelmed, there's just so much going on, and that's become some kind of badge of honor at this point. It's been accepted now. So it's either you don't feel it, or if you do feel it, it means you're doing something right, because you got so much going on that now it's become acceptable to operate in a state of anxiety and fear and overwhelm. And then those who say, I'm done with all of that, I'm going to go and create a life in joy and in love, that becomes the crazy thing. That's insane, right? And that's a judgment, yes, and yet it's simply insane, because from a higher level perspective, it just shows how much we have been ingrained and conditioned to live in these lower life constricting emotions, densities. These are dense. So when we have been taught to operate here as the norm, it has been manipulated into us so that we don't operate up here where our sovereign power, where our intellectual, our whole intelligence is. That is where we become free, completely free to live as our sovereign selves. And we have been manipulated and deceived and for millennia. So these densities that we keep working at are not only ours, they are ancestral. They are parts of our cellular DNA brought in from our traumas, from our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, all of the generations before us that have not cleared their own emotional densities. And we bring those into our existence through our DNA. It's in our cells. So that is why clearing these densities and purging them takes work, because it's not just ours, but yet we are the brave ones who are willing to sit with them. And as these energies are intensifying and becoming stronger and stronger and showing us, triggering these things up to the surface for us to be with, that is why it feels like it's a never-ending process, because there are generations of traumas that we are clearing. That is why, for those who are not conscious of this journey, why it is a shock to the system, and it's going to become more and more shocking when they actually have to start taking a look at this stuff if they are willing. There has to be a willingness. Willingness is in those life expanding emotions. When we become willing to sit with these densities so that we can clear it for the final time, we have to realize that these emotional traumas are like big, dense balls of energy. There's a big ball of grief that's been carried from generation to generation, and then your ego has also pulled in whatever there is to feel in grief. There's also fear that has been ingrained in you from our outside world and from generational teachings and what we're taught as kids. Like, oh, don't do that. You'll die. You'll get kidnapped. Don't go travel there because you'll get your head decapitated. When we decided to travel all through Mexico and drive, the amount of people who said, what, people die in Mexico, was insane to us. And we had not one instance. Actually, we had one instance, and it was just getting pulled over and getting robbed, and it was by the police. But no other time in 2,000 miles of traveling through Mexico did we even come close to dying or being threatened. So we have been taught so many untruths that we have then pulled into our being as fact and have learned to become fearful of or anxious of or shameful of, angry towards, resentful for. And these are all things that we've either experienced, we've been taught, or we've just pulled in through our DNA from our ancestors. So there is so much to unpack. This isn't something that is to be feared. It's just to understand why we have to take these big balls as, when we get hit by these energies and all of a sudden one day we're like, oh, I'm so angry. And we can put intellectual definitions as to what is causing that anger in that moment for us, but it doesn't really matter. It's just understanding that there's another layer for us to purge. It doesn't mean that all of that anger is gone just because you sit in anger for a day and you don't project it out. You don't have to tell everybody why you're angry. You can simply just be in it and journal it out, scream it out, cry it out. Whatever the avenue is, walk out in nature and just breathe it out and give it to Mother Nature. Give it to our earth and say, please take this anger. You can pray. Pray to your ancestors. Pray to your guides. We've talked about our guides. They are willing to help with this process, but you have to be willing to sit with it and understand that it's just another layer. And then the next day, it might be shame that you're feeling, and you're shameful for something that you've done or a decision that you've made. Or sometimes you sit and you're like, I feel so much sadness and I don't even know what this is about. That's probably ancestral stuff. So when you get to the point where you're feeling something, that is when you just eliminate and purge that layer. And with every single purge, you are then getting that out of your body. It gives your physical body a lighter sense. It gives your physical body a break from having to hold all of this stuff all over its body, all over itself. And then we wonder why our shoulders hurt, why our guts are a mess, And we can say, oh, it's because it runs in my family. Exactly. If it runs in your family, you've been told the story why it runs in the family, and it probably runs in the family because there's a lot of emotional trauma in that area that has brought that compromised area into your existence simply because it's been passed down from generation to generation. This is yours to clear ancestrally and generationally. That's why it's hard work. But that is why you are here to learn this process so that you can then share it with your kids or your family if they listen. And if they don't, you are not the one to teach them. They'll learn it from somewhere else. But there is someone that will listen to you because they see how you are healing. This is how this time works. So do the work and sit with it. Because the more you do, the more it clears it for our collective, the more it clears it for our planet, and it expands into a consciousness. And not only then are you giving of yourself not only to yourself, but to the collective and to this conscious ascension that we are taking our whole planet through. You have a part in this. If you are watching this video, you are an integral part, because there is not many people that are learning this process. There aren't many people who are brave enough for this process. There aren't many people who are willing to even look at it because it seems so scary. And I know it's a lot of work because I'm in it with you, but I can feel my own self getting lighter and lighter and expanding into these higher realms of existence. And as we do that, then our physical world changes. And then people say, how do you do that? How are you expanding when the whole world's in chaos? How are you growing? How are you experiencing a good life? And you get to say, because I've done the work. Would you like to hear what that work is? And if they say yes, you share. If they say no, you say okay. But allow yourself the privilege of doing this work ahead of most people, because it means this is your time. This is your time to be a leader, to be a pioneer of existence, literally existence. This is a beautiful time. Right now, we're in an integration time. It's kind of quiet. So this is when anything that bubbled up from all of those triggers in the last couple of days, now it's time to sit with it, because we're gonna get some more triggers coming in. We've got solar flares nonstop coming in, it seems like, this week. So we have even more energy that's coming from the sun on top of the cosmic energies that are already happening because of where we are in this planetary existence in this moment. So while we have a break, do some work, take care of yourself, drink some tea, take a bath, Epsom salt bath, be in nature, sit in the sun. Like, I usually sit like this. I can't do it now because my retinas would burn. But whenever I can put my face in the sun, my dog, we have a spot over here because she's in the sun. She just sits there. Our animals are in this process too. So be kind with them. If they're a little bit crazy and a little bit antsy, just be kind. Give them, a pat down, pull the energy for them, ground them down, make sure they're outside, make sure they're putting their paws in the grass. Just allow this process to have its way with you. It's a beautiful time. I'm so grateful to be doing these. These videos help me so much when I hear my own voice talk it through, it helps me understand even further, helps me go deeper, gets me braver, and it helps me to then understand a little bit more what I'm here to do, and it is to share this process and this experience. So thank you for allowing me to do that with you. Be kind to yourself. I will see you tomorrow on the next Daily Tune-In. Bye, my friends. If today's daily tune-in brought you value and insight, please consider giving in return for that value by leaving a love offering. All donations go to keeping this platform operating and in service to humanity during these transformational times. To go even deeper into your soul frequency, please consider these offerings. For personal insights into your most pressing questions and concerns, get an energetic insight reading delivered directly to your inbox. To take a quantum leap in your transformation, book a personal session with Vedette. There are several options available based on how deeply you would like to go into your most desired soul-led life. To find more information and to book your sessions, please visit VedetteMayer.com.